your dreams.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another Genshin Impact video, and today I'm just going to be talking about should you play Genshin Impact in 2023. By the way, if you haven't liked the content, feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff. It'd be greatly appreciated. Now, if you should play Genshin Impact or not, it's going to be really up to you. It is a free game that you can download. I will point out and say that the longer you wait to play Genshin Impact, the more better experience you may get. And that is mostly because once you start playing Genshin Impact, there is a lot of content to do to the point where it can even seem overwhelming. And the longer you wait to play Genshin Impact, the more content there will be in the game. Especially if you play the game for like 1 hour a day, you will probably most likely never ever run out of content to do because there's just so much to do. And as the time goes on, by the time we get to Snezhnaya, if any new player were to join in on Snezhnaya, they're gonna have so much shit to do. They'll be like, what the fuck? How am I gonna play this game? I don't know if by then Hoyoverse is going to have like some sort of weird catch-up event or something, but the longer you wait, the most likely you'll never ever run out of content to do. But since this video is titled 2023, should you play it right now? If anything, right now, exactly right the fuck now is probably the best time to play it because there is a new region coming out, the new region being Fontaine. Not to mention the anniversary is literally this fall. Not that I'm saying that this year's anniversary is going to be very significant, but who knows? Maybe they'll actually do something great for this anniversary. But anyways, with Fontaine coming out, I think now is a better chance to play Genshin Impact. My biggest advice for new players that are joining in is to take your time with the game because by the time you get to endgame, there's really going to be much to do. And if you do take this game at a casual pace, you'll most likely never run out of content to do. Now, if you don't know what Genshin Impact is and what's it all about, let me just fill in for you. So Genshin Impact is a game developed by Hoyoverse, and it's an open world game that you basically travel around this world called Teyvat with 4 characters. And the combat basically consists of you switching around these characters, applying elemental reactions to the enemies. There are 7 elements in the game: Pyro, Hydro, Electro, Anemo, Geo, Cryo, and Dendro. All of these elements are named with Latin names in mind, Pyro obviously being fire, Hydro being water, Anemo being wind, Geo being earth, Cryo being ice, Electro being thunder, and Dendro being plant. Now, even though there are elements in this game, it does not play like Pokemon, like Pyro being super effective against Dendro. The combat is a little similar to Xenoblade 2, in which you basically stack elements against an enemy. There are certain elements that are good against specific enemies, or in order to break a specific enemy's shield, you do need an element, and there are enemies that are resistant to certain elements, but there is still no Pokemon type weaknesses involved here. There is a story mode in Genshin Impact that you can participate in. The main story revolves around a blonde traveler, either it's Ether or Lumine. Depending on which sibling you pick, they basically travel around Teyvat in order to search for their sibling with a fairy called Paimon. Story is so-and-so, it's alright I guess. Once you consume so much fiction like I do, nothing can really like surprise you at this point. I think I've seen it all. Keep in mind though that for whatever fucking stupid reason, Hoyoverse has never put it as skip button in this game, so Hoyoverse seems really proud of their story if they don't add a skip button in this game. Like, it's 2023, why the fuck does this game not have a skip button? Anyways, if you're the type of player that's just very story driven, then maybe having no skip button is a pretty good yes for you. But if you're just playing this game just for the characters and the combat and you don't really give a shit about the story, then the game having no skip button is kind of miserable for you. This game is pretty story driven, which is why I would suggest that you casually take your time with this game, because by the time you get to endgame, you're basically doing nothing but twiddling your thumbs and waiting for the next story to come out. So I would just highly suggest that you casually take your time with this game. Now, there are other things that you can do in Genshin Impact since it is an open world game. You can craft potions and make food. There are all types of puzzles in the game that you can solve. You can go fish. You can customize your own house and a teapot. Yes, it's a little weird to explain, but there is a housing feature that you can have in the game. And there is a mini game that you can play, which is called the Genius Invocation TCG, which is basically like a trading card mini game that involves the characters in Genshin. And the hardest content that you can participate in Genshin Impact is called the Abyss, which basically resets only twice a month. Now let's talk about the spicy part about Genshin Impact, and that spicy part right there is called the gacha system. Now Genshin Impact is a lot of people's very first gacha game. By the time they get to the gacha system, which is pretty early on, this can be a turn on or a turn off for most people because gacha games in the West typically don't have a really good welcoming party. Now, I do think the gacha system in this game is relatively good. There are 3 types of banners that you can pull on in Genshin Impact. You have the standard banner, which basically consists of the standard characters and the standard weapons. You have the limited banner, which is basically the limited 5-star of the month. And you have the limited weapons banner that goes along with the limited 5-star of the month. The standard banner is the only banner that takes a different currency. However, because it is a standard banner, you really don't have to pay too much attention to the standard banner. It's going to be the limited banner or the limited weapon banner that you're going to mostly focus on. Now, when you first start pulling for the limited banner on whoever limited character that you're pulling for, on the very first 80th pull, you're guaranteed a 5-star. However, that's going to be a 50-50, which basically means you're either going to get the character featured on the limited banner or you're going to get a character on the standard banner. Now, if you lose a 50-50, that means you got the standard character instead of the limited character, which basically means you have to pull another 80 times to get the guaranteed 5-star character. Now, I know I did say on the 80th pull, but there is a chance that you can get a 5-star character before the 80th pull, which basically means you're lucky in most scenarios, especially if you won the 50-50. If you get the 5-star before the 80th pull, you've just resetted the pity. Now, as I stated earlier, I think the gacha is okay. At least the pity in this game can still be carried over to other banners. I know other gacha games, especially like FGO, who does have their own pity system, but for FGO, the pity system does not carry on the next banner, which basically means that you have to go all out in order to get the pity. But in Genshin, you don't have to go all out in one banner in order to get the pity. You can basically save your pity for the next banner if you wanted to. So overall, I do think the gacha system in Genshin is relatively fair. Anybody that says otherwise is just salty that they lost their 50-50 or whatever. I do think the weapon banner is mostly a scam, especially if you are going to be a free-to-play player. Mostly because I think you can get by just fine with the 4-star weapons in this game. Some of the 4-star weapons are pretty good. And I think characters are a little bit more important than weapons in my opinion, because with a character, you get a totally different play style. So if you are going to be free-to-play in Genshin Impact, I would highly suggest that you avoid the weapon banner. Now, the gacha system isn't the only thing that involves RNG in Genshin Impact. There's also the artifact system, which is basically your gear. In Genshin Impact, you have to level up your artifacts, which is your gear, in order for your characters to deal more damage. However, each artifact is going to have a different substats. The last 3 artifact slots, which is the timepiece, the circlet, and the goblet, those 3 will always have different main stats. Basically, whenever you level up an artifact in Genshin Impact, it's gonna be randomized on what substat is going to get leveled up. And when you're farming for artifacts, especially when you're farming for the timepiece, goblet, and circlet, you're going to be searching for a specific main stat on one of those 3, and that too involves RNG. So searching for the main stat for either the goblet, circlet, or timepiece revolves around RNG, and leveling up these artifacts will also revolve around RNG. The artifact system in Genshin is not perfect whatsoever. I do think this is something that they need to improve on, but I would still not let this artifact system get to your head. You really don't have to worry about min-maxing too much. It doesn't really matter if you have an elemental mastery main stat instead of an attack. As long as you're strong enough to defeat overworld enemies, then you're basically good. Now, during this video, I most likely said numerous times that you should casually take your time in Genshin Impact. And the biggest reason why you should do this is because Genshin Impact does not have an endgame whatsoever. By the time you get to endgame, you're basically constantly farming artifacts, or you're just farming materials to level up a new character. There is no real endgame in Genshin, and no, I don't consider Abyss endgame because you only do that shit twice a month. TCG is not real endgame either because that's the type of shit that you just do for fun. It's an okay mini game mode, but I really do think that they should have put it in like a separate app instead. But anyways, there's no real end game for Genshin, so there's really no need to rush the content in the game. With Fontaine coming out this year, you'll have plenty of content to do in Genshin Impact, so now is a better time to play the game. So that's going to be the end of this video. Let me know what you guys think. Any comments, concerns, questions, let me know in the comments. I basically see every comment. I most likely reply to every comment. Like the content, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.
Bye-bye now. Come again soon.